Hey, I'm Elijha Mahar with Chris Gordon at HellblazerBiz.com.
Everyone, I have the honor and the privilege of the company of Elijha Mahar. Or how are you? Thank you for joining me.
Good. Thanks for having me.
No worries, thank you. And obviously, you are playing William Bill Sewell in Elkhorn, which is
That's correct.
currently on INSP network. So excellent. So obviously, I've got a few questions for you, and we'll crack on. Hopefully, have a good conversation from it all, because I love the character, by the way. I love all the characters on Elkhorn, which is why I'm trying to bring you all on to talk to you, so I can get to know you better. Bill Sewell is one of those that stands out, very much so. So, what kind of initially drew you to the character of Bill? Obviously, you auditioned for the parts, I know, but when you got the script, what kind of drew you to that?
Well, when I first got the script, I wasn't sure what it was. It was kind of a last minute thing, and it had a different name. I just, I didn't know if it was a movie or if it was episodic or if it was, I had no idea. It just said it was titled Legends of the Badlands. And so I was like, I don't know what this is. I'm reading my lines, and I noticed that I'm talking to Theodore Roosevelt. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what this project is. Never heard of it. And the audition scene was the very end scene of episode 1. When I'm talking to him, he's asking, should we stay here? And I'm basically kind of like trying to feel him out. Say, yeah, listen, we're doing this, but there is your life back home. You're an important person. You have a child. So I'm a father myself. So it kind of struck home with me where I was like, this guy, he just lost his wife. He just lost his mother, and he just picked up and moved away. Just went out there to basically start completely over, to hide the pain, to forget about what had just recently happened. Luckily, he was an affluent person with money, so he could afford to do that. Now, my character, Sewell, had known Roosevelt since he was a boy. He was always a sickly person, and his family had sent him to Maine to get him into the fresh air and the outdoors. And personally, I'm from Washington State. My wife and I have a summer house in Maine is in my wife's family for decades and decades. So that was kind of a close personal thing. And anyway, so Sewell comes out as, kind of a voice of reason and kind of a little bit of a grumpy uncle, which I definitely identify with that. I kind of have that in my own life with my friends. I'm like, come on, guys, really? Are we doing this? And it was that same thing. And so I'm reading it, and it just spoke to me immediately. Went in for the audition, and, it just came out. And it was very natural. Very easy. I met with Mason at the callback. We had a good connection there, and it went from there. And everyone in the room was like, "That's it. That's perfect." So it was one of those roles that, even though it's not personally a lot like me as far as physically and vocally, personality wise, it just clicked like immediately. And so just naturally, I was drawn to it. I was like, this is something I can really get behind. I'm not having to dig too deep on where these lines are coming from. So it was great.
Brilliant, that's great. And it's nice to hear like the grumpy uncle, because I think he's described as like a father figure, I think, in some ways. When I spoke to Mason said he sees him more of like the babysitter type person, because obviously you've had that.
So the uncle, the babysitter. Mason's emotional, and he's going to Roosevelt's trying to do these things, and I'll be standing there going, are you sure? Now, I don't ever tell him what to do. I just say, are you sure this is something you want to do? I let him make his own decisions, because I know, he's growing to become a man, and he has to learn on his own. So I just kind of give him another point of view on a lot of things. Like, you want to do that? And then he says yes, and I say, not a good idea, but it's your decision to make.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the fist fights as well, because that's something that got me, is how many fights Roosevelt gets into.
I know,
it's like
I know.
Every opportunity.
I learned about that too. I'm like, is this guy fighting all the time? And apparently he was a boxer, he was a fighter.
Yeah, all right, yeah, yeah. Because when I spoke to Mason, I was just like, that's one thing I said, which I was watching it, and you have an impression, don't you, of Roosevelt, and then all of a
Of
sudden he
course.
goes his fists out, and he's like really beating the hell out of someone. I was like, whoa!
Hmm.
I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, proper Western.
Well, you have to have those things in there. You got to get the Western feel. There's got to be bad guys slinging guns. There's got to be bar fights, and there's got to be broken bottles.
Exactly. Otherwise, that's how it's got to be. How would you describe? I've asked this to everyone now. So, how would you describe Bill Sewell in 3 words? How would you describe him?
Well, he's honest, he's honorable,
Hmm.
and he's kind of he's no nonsense. It's like whatever anyone's doing, it's like there's right and there's wrong, and
Yeah.
or at least my version. There's what I
Hmm.
believe is right, and then there's the other stuff, and I'm gonna stick with that. I'm not gonna back down. This was a different time when you
Yeah.
stood by what you believed in, and that was who you were. You
Hmm.
know, and I think that's a lot of the reason why Roosevelt invited Sewell and his nephew
Yeah.
to come out and manage the ranch.
Yeah, definitely, because I think that's very much what Roosevelt's character was, which you can see building from here. Is he wants the adventure, but he is very still honourable, and speaking to the different actors from here, and the way the takes on it, you can see how he is on it, and that's why I think he fights with Marquis so much as well, is because the
Mm-hmm.
Marquis obviously, in his own way, the Marquis is also honourable. He's got his nobleman. Well, I say he's nobleman, but she's the one with the money, is Medora.
Yeah,
They're both quite, yeah, they're both quite devious, but they're quite noble in their way. And obviously, they see Roosevelt at the beginning as an equal, I think, and try to steer it with their own little twist of
sure,
which is where
sure.
which is where William comes into it as well, trying to give a bit of reasoning to Roosevelt, but
Yeah, I
and
mean
still.
they're in the Wild West.
Hmm.
Almost everyone in the Wild West is they're just out there trying to make it. Now these guys, the Marquis, Roosevelt, they're from something. They have money, they
Yeah.
have history, and they're trying to bring something to the West, which not easy to do. Obviously, there's a lot of dangers out there, and
Hmm.
Marquis trying to make it his world, and Roosevelt, at first he doesn't necessarily want to make it anything other than just get away and start
Yeah.
over and make life simple. And I come out there and I see the Marquis and I see Medora and I see the way they are, and it's almost shocking. It's almost
Hmm.
annoying to me. Where I see it's a dirty town. Everyone's doing their thing, and then the Marquis and they're over there, and it's almost too much to me. When I'm talking
Yeah.
to Medora's explaining to me, we're having a conversation, and I'm looking around the house like, what is all this stuff? Paintings and
Hmm.
all of the different artwork, and it's so out of place that it's awkward for me. And Sewell is a simple guy. He's a woodsman. He lives in
Yeah.
a log cabin. He has a beautiful wife who he loves very much, and it's a simple life. He hunts, he
Hmm.
builds, and that's it. And
Yeah.
so when he gets out there, it's all a shock to him that there's such a brutality to the world. You know,
And yeah, I mean, it kind of depicts again, I guess, in something that's gone throughout history and is still very much evident today, without going into the political side of it, the divide between the working everyday people and then those with the money.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
affluent and just a lot of them just showing off, like you say, with the paintings
yeah,
and just trying to, what's the word? Like peacock feathers, really, isn't it? And they're trying
exactly.
to,
Yep. Look at
yeah,
me. Look at
strutting
all this
around.
stuff.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. We can afford all this, you
Mhm.
can't. That kind of attitude, and it's something that's is gone throughout. We've seen it throughout history. Every genre, every era seems to
Always.
have the same, always, and even back. So it's pretty good like that. And I say with William, like you say, you're very down to earth and like you said, the voice of reason and stuff in Roosevelt's ear all the time as well. And not just this, you've got Wilmot as well. Dow, your nephew, you're trying to bring into it too. So the three of you come together. You're like your little pack, your posse, should I say?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. With the
Roosevelt's
Elkhorn
posse.
the Elkhorn crew. You
Yeah,
know.
exactly. And then Merrifield as well. Obviously, you're not forgetting him as well. So you have got your. He
Yeah.
just stands silently in the background quite a lot, just with his moustache.
Best mustache in entertainment biz, right there.
It is. And I did say that to Matt the other night. I said, because he's still got the goatee with the moustache, but he's had to trim it down a bit. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, come on. That's.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
everyone. At first, everyone was like, "Is that thing even real?" I mean, come on, it's incredible.
Mm.
But it is, and that guy's great. Very unique, very distinguished look. That mustache, like not everyone could pull that mustache off, but with him, I've never seen him without it.
Right.
So that would be odd. If I saw him with no mustache, I'd be like, I don't know, man, get that thing back.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it's the same with Mason. I mean, Mason, when I spoke to Mason, Mason's got like a beard going now, and I
Yeah.
just at first I didn't recognise him when he came on. I was like, whoa, oh, and it was quite funny because the change. But yeah, um, Matt's moustache. That is. It's gonna. I think that'll last for quite a long time. I think.
A character of its own.
It is, yeah. So, kind of, what challenges did you face then in portraying William Sewell? Was there obviously you've mentioned a bit of the backstory of where he came from and stuff in the background. So, what kind of
Well, I wanted
research
to,
did you do into it?
you know, I found everything that I could on him. Now he still has a home in Maine, which is about I'm not sure. It's quite a drive from our house on the lake,
Right.
and so I didn't actually get to go up there, but I did some research on it. It's still there. It's a famous. I mean, Sewell is famous because he was close with Roosevelt. Like that's why things are preserved. Anything that touched Roosevelt is cherished.
Yeah.
In this country's history. So, but he also wrote books, and there's pictures and photographs, and most of the pictures that I saw of him, big beard, tall, skinny man, wearing animal furs, like he was a real dude, he was out there. So I had the pictures to go off of. So originally when I read the script, they describe him as being a mountain of a man.
Right.
I'm thinking like in the high sixes, 6'6",
Yeah.
and a big beast, and
Wow.
very intimidating to look at.
Yeah.
Now I'm larger than normal. I'm about 6'1", 210 pounds. But when I met the cast, most of them are taller than I am. Like obviously Wilmot, he's very tall. Matt's taller than I'm only taller than Roosevelt.
Yeah.
And so all the scenes that the mass of this man, he's supposed to just be able to walk up to someone and people go, okay, we're not messing with this guy. That just couldn't be played, because of my height. So I had to try to figure out a way to bring that presence. So I was like, okay, so what can I do? How can I be intimidating to these people? So I came up with a mad dog death stare,
Yeah.
like right into the eyes, unwavering look, like don't do one more thing. Don't do one more thing. That something's about to happen that's bad. I lowered my voice a bit. I made it very gravelly and very kind of slow and methodic, just to get a physical character, so that it would be believable that people might just be scared of this guy a little bit. The first scene when I come into town, there's the gunslingers that they're like, "Welcome to town, boys," and we're supposed to be like we've been in danger before, maybe not guns pointed at us, but we're hunters. We've seen death.
Yeah.
And so the only way to portray that is to just stare them down and basically hope they don't shoot us. He shoots the hat off my head. I know all of a sudden he doesn't mean business. So from then on out, it's just a stare. I walk up to him. I look him right in the eyes like, that's it. I hold my axe up. No one carries an axe around. I pull out this axe like, it's like, what's this guy going to do with an axe? And so it was those kind of things that I developed my physical character to feel bigger, to feel stronger, to feel intimidating to them. Now, like I said before, as far as the mental character, the grumpy uncle, the kind of like a little bit annoyed by things, Wilmot, my nephew, he's kind of silly in ways. He's young. He's just learning about life. And, he'll say something silly. And I do a lot of grunting. It's a lot like, okay. Kind of, I'm going to let these people do what these people are going to do, and eventually I'm going to tell them, listen, you're annoying, So it was all that. It was all those things. It put those together, and I think it came out nicely, without being the big, huge, scary man. I think I developed something that betrays that without the height and the mass.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I can see definitely that scene which you mentioned with the axe. I did laugh because that was that was really quite. It was pretty
Yeah,
funny. The intimidation of like their faces were just like, okay, let's go.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. We thought this was going to be fun, but we picked on the wrong guy.
Yeah, exactly. He's just stood there with this one massive axe, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we better go quickly. That's fantastic. And I think we touched on it slightly as well. Is where do you believe that his strongest, great, can't speak, sorry, his greatest strength would have come from? And then obviously his weakness after that. So what do you think his greatest strengths were?
Well, I think Sewell's strengths are that his life is simple and
Hmm.
everything makes sense. He hunts for his food. He's in the wilderness. He has a wife that he loves very much and he comes home to. And it's just very easy. So everything makes sense. So
Yeah.
he can face any situation
Hmm.
almost with a strong base. When something happens, it's not going to throw him. So he's always a sturdy, stable, voice of reason for Roosevelt.
Hmm.
Now he encounters a couple people in the West that behave to him so erratically that it kind of pushes him into the world. He witnesses his first murder, and
Hmm.
it's shocking to him because he just can't understand. Like even in Maine
Yeah.
and the woodsmen and stuff, there's some civility, back in the
Hmm.
East. Here, there's none. So he is a little shocked and taken back, and has to learn how to deal with that in a different way. His weakness, I would say, probably. I mean, it's your strengths and your weaknesses a lot of times come from the same thing. His weakness
Hmm.
would be that he's not used to this world. When he thinks that he should be able to say, "This is the way." We're going to make this deal. We're going to sell this cattle. We're going to raise this cattle. And like I said, when certain things go wrong, it's like, okay, okay. And also, he does let Roosevelt make all the decisions for himself.
Yeah.
Some of them are right, some of them are wrong. Now,
Hmm.
as a grumpy uncle slash father, sometimes you tell that child or that nephew, this is what to do and this is what you're going to do. He
Yeah.
never does that. He never does that, and so the story does take some twists that had Theodore just listened in the first place, we wouldn't go there. You know, and
Yeah.
also his
Yeah.
weakness is he starts to get lonely. He misses his wife. He misses
Hmm.
Mary. He starts to see people, creating families and creating, relationships here.
Yeah.
And, he she's like his rock, you know? And so he starts to feel a bit lonely and a little heartsick in future
Yeah.
episodes. And so he not to spoil anything, but yeah, he misses
No,
his
no. Well,
wife a
I
lot.
know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I know Dow and Rosie kind of meet, don't they, in
They
episode
do.
4, which
They
is
have
the
a
one
thing,
after I've
and
seen.
and
Yeah, so they kind of have a thing. So.
in episode 5, which is airing tonight, there's a few scenes where Sewell really starts to realize that he should not have left his wife back home. He should have brought
Ah,
her.
right. Okay.
He thought it would
Yeah,
be
should have brought.
impossible, that it would be too dangerous, that there was no
Hmm.
reason to do it. He starts to see things where he says, I need Mary here.
Right.
She
Okay.
she makes me, she's half of me.
Hmm.
Um, and he realizes that she's a good half. She's the part that brings him joy.
Yeah. Okay, so I get that, and that kind of is kind of the opposite to Roosevelt, really, because I'll say he's a stable guy. He wants to bring that with him. He misses that, whereas obviously he provides that, like you say, that strength and that stability to Roosevelt's erraticness, because I mean, obviously he'd gone through that tremendous, well, double loss, pretty,
Yeah,
back home, but he just abandoned. He's got an abandoned daughter. We
yeah,
discussed he left his daughter. He thinks better off with somebody else, and it's just like
yeah,
seems to run away from his troubles at that young age.
yeah,
He gets, and I think that's obviously part of being
yeah,
under your Sewell's guidance and
yeah. I mean, and that's
steerage.
why Sewell goes out there. I mean, it's not an easy journey. He knows Teddy. He loves Teddy. He's kind of helped to raise him a little bit, and he
Hmm.
sees, all right, this this kid, he's going down a path. He needs someone out there to at least show him, to at least, give him a little push in a direction, or at least, tell him about that there are options. Don't forget about this life just because you're in pain right now. Mm-hmm. It's something that happens to all of us, And Roosevelt's 25, early 20s. He's got a whole life ahead of him, and Sewell realizes that Roosevelt's life is going to be an important one. He's from an affluent family. He's smart. He's brave. He fights, well beyond his means. He's just, he's someone that he knows that this kid, he needs to be somewhere where he can make a difference eventually. And that's part of the reason he goes out there. Help him out, see what's going on, and, just let him know life isn't over. You got a daughter. There is a future and a path for you in the East. But we'll be here now. We'll do this cowboy thing.
Yeah.
We'll see how this plays out.
Cool, excellent. I know as well. He kind of kept in touch as well, even after he'd gone back east. He still kept in touch, didn't he? Back with Elkhorn and stuff like that. And he kind of, he kept. I think he went back a few times as well, which was really good to hear. But it's great to have that stabilization for the character. It's good, I think, that's what the whole with the show is, because everyone's got this image of Roosevelt. I mean, I always picture him like Robin. Well, I think I said the Robin Williams in the museum on the horseback. It's like, yes, come, my dear boy. That kind of, that kind of the cavalry, and I think that's the image everyone has. So seeing him young, seeing him making the same mistakes, the same, in comparison to the era, the same kind of mistakes and thoughts of maturing as himself as a person. Before obviously then, like you say, taking the advice slowly from Sewell and Merrifield and all those others, and then taking that back and becoming the man he became.
Yeah, it's an interesting part of his life that not a lot of people know about. We know everyone knows that he's from an affluent family, wealthy. He was a sickly child, and then they kind of go to the Rough Rider, and then President and the national parks and Mount Rushmore, But there's a chunk, and it just happens to be a chunk of his life where he happened to be in the West, which is a very exciting time and place in this country. So it's a cool story. It's really cool.
It is, yeah. And I say he was a very slight man. That's why I think Mason was laughing, because he's when you said before about obviously the Sewell's character being meant to be like 6'6", and you not being, well, still being tall, but not as tall, but pushing that presence across. Yeah. Mason was laughing because I think he said that, there's him because he's quite small, he said. And so he's standing there waiting to fight this guy. So he's the tiny guy, and then everyone else is towering over him.
Yeah. I was really glad, once we were doing that, because like I said, most everyone that was on that show, and I'm tall, and most everyone was taller than me, except Mason. So I was like, all right, at least when I'm talking with Mason, it seems like I'm looking to him as an old, like I've got a little bit of a height advantage there.
Excellent. I mean, I've got to say, for the height advantage thing, it does work in some things. One of my favourite book things to read, and the show now is Reacher. And that's a good one where you look at the stature of the character and the stature of the thing. Because I mean, Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise, amazing. Acting what he does is brilliant, but he was not Reacher.
Yeah, I've read every Reacher book. I absolutely love Reacher. Great.
So yeah, he's just amazing. So when the TV series came, it was one of those where it's like, what's going to happen? It's only reminded me when you're talking about the physical stature and that, and then I was like, then what? I can't even remember the actor's name.
Alan Richardson.
Yeah. And he's
and that's the size. Like, I mean, when I read,
that's the size that Sewell should be.
Yeah, like maybe not as muscular, but big and
height wise. Yeah.
It's supposed to look like, oh gosh, let's get out of this guy's way, which was funny because when I, like I said, when I read it, I'm like, wow. And then when I was cast, I just assumed that everyone was going to be littler than me. And then when I got there, I'm like, okay, we're going to have to make some changes here. But it ended up being great. Such a fun
that's
character.
What makes it.
That's
what makes the acting special, doesn't it?
It's nice to be able to, okay, I'm gonna figure out a way to be intimidating, not just size and height. How can I do that?
Yeah. Excellent. That's a great way. That's a great way to sort of build your own acting and your own personal development anyway, because you know
Yeah.
you're having to suddenly you change what the perceptions are when you've got to set and realize that things aren't how you thought it was in your head when you were reading this. You know, yeah,
Oh yeah.
it helps you build that. Were there any improvisational type moments on set which would maybe help to develop things as well that you could do? I guess there was probably not much room for it, but
Well, yeah. There was a couple times when they were. They would let us go a little bit, unless it was something that was written historically. In my first monologue in the end of episode 1, I was kind of going a little bit off script at point, and the script supervisor came and said, "Listen, this line is actually on a written piece of paper. So
right,
this line has to be said just like this." And I'm like,
yeah,
"Oh, okay, I got you. Um,
hmm
but they let us flow a little bit, and obviously when the horses were introduced, that's when we had to really start kind of going with, because you have to go with the horse is going to do what the horse is going to do,
yeah,
So maybe you're supposed to just be standing there, but the horse doesn't really feel like just standing there, so it's moving around. So actually, being on the horse and acting at the same time, it really makes acting simple, because you're no longer, it's real.
yeah,
It's what's happening is real. The horse is moving around. It's got a personality. It doesn't listen to the director, which is funny sometimes. They'd be like, "Can we get the horse to do this?" And I'd be like, "I mean, it's a wild animal, man. We're gonna try. We're gonna try, but we'll see what happens." Some people improvised a lot more than others.
hmm
Just Sewell is a man of few words, as few as
yeah,
possible. So there wasn't
hmm
a lot for me that I needed to add, other than a
yeah,
lot of grunting. As reaction,
hmm
someone would say something I'm like, there was a lot of that in growling. But other people, Merrifield, for instance, his character talks a lot. He's a
hmm
talker, and Matt had a great time flowing through his conversations, adding a little extra Merrifield here and there, which was great. It was fun to act against, because you're like, all right, I'm not quite sure when this. I'm just going to go with it. Here we go.
yeah,
Yeah, he was great to work with, and everyone, and the whole cast, the guest stars, all of the one episode characters,
hmm
are all fantastic. When every time we got on set with them, I was like, where did you find all these people? Because everyone is pretty much an unknown, you know, and they were all
yeah.
fantastic.
They were. Sorry, I muted myself then to cough. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
you are right. I mean, that's one thing that I love that I've speaking to everybody who's been involved in this so far is the one thing everyone has said is the cast have just been so good, and I think that comes through when you're watching a show or a film or anything like that. It's really obvious, I think, when you know that the cast is really close knit because it seems to sing. There's like
yeah,
a note that just sings at the right pitch when it comes out. That you can see. I mean, there are some times where you see that there's been some friction with people off, back off the set because
right,
you can, yeah, because no matter how professional they are, there's that hesitance or,
sure,
you know, I mean. To take something you were in before, the X Files, which is one of my favourite shows of all time, which you've been in,
yeah,
you know, you could see at the end there the friction between how Mulder, because they weren't getting on and sort of so
right. And
yeah.
they've been
So when
doing
you
it
get
for however many years, and yeah,
yeah, exactly. I think they just got fed up of each other's company. But
yeah.
like Elkhorn, because you're so close knit and you get on so well, and everyone seems, or everyone is who I've spoken to is so nice, and you're just so friendly and outgoing, and I can just imagine being on such a close knit set as a little Western set that
Well, it was
there's nowhere
great
to go.
because we had an area where we all could be together if we wanted to,
hmm
like a gathering room, like almost like a green room, per
Yeah.
se. A lot of times when you're on set, you go to your trailer and you're just kind
hmm
of in the trailer until you're not, until they call you
Yeah.
to set. Now we
Uh-huh.
had a place where we could all hang out, so we all got to know each other. We all got to just sit around and talk, which was kind of like doing when you do a play. The
Yeah.
cast really gets to know each other really well because you're all together a lot, and
hmm
which was nice. I really enjoyed that experience of being able to be, if we wanted to be, all together, a couple people here, a couple people there, instead
Yeah.
of being isolated. Especially for when you have the guest stars, or when you're a guest star, you
hmm
don't you get to set and you don't necessarily know anybody. You don't know who's what, who's doing. There's one person that talks to you, and you sit there and you kind of are alone, and that's how nerves build up. Here, if say we were doing a scene, and there was a couple guest stars on set, and I'd see them over there, and I'd be like, oh, that's who I have my scene with later on, and I'd go over and be like, hey guys, what's going on? Let's talk about this. Let's and by the time you finally got to set, there was no nerves. You weren't meeting for the first time when they said action. Which I think that was the best for me. That was the most enjoyable part about the process, was just being there with all the actors, getting to know everyone on a personal level, and it comes through in the scenes. You have that
Definitely.
You have that friendship, like Wilmot, Eric, and myself. We were together a lot. In real life, I'm much older than he is, and so the real life relationship can come across in the scenes.
Yeah, definitely, and that's what I was getting at. It really does, and because you've got that friendship, so you can bounce off each other more. You can work with each other more. You can start to, let's say, if you're with each other all the time and you're hanging out, you can learn each other's mannerisms and just get to understand them more. So you can maybe preempt when their characters are, they're in their character and they're going to do something. Then it starts to flow more, and you can do all that. Yeah,
there's a personal connection that's not that's real.
Exactly, and like I say, everyone's great on it, and the costumes as well. The costumes are fantastic. I think I was talking with Rosie. I was talking, with Tori about Medora's costumes. And Ashton having to wear like heavy velvet in that, because there's no aircon, so all of you having to wear all this, the Victorian garb, and that's really quite heavy set with no aircon going, because obviously that'll disturb you. You can't have aircon in the 1800s when the cameras are rolling. So how did you find that? Did that get you more? That helps you get in character as well, more, I presume.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, going through wardrobe and makeup every day, that's the character comes when you look at yourself in the mirror and you've gone through makeup and you've gone through wardrobe. It's different. You're like, oh, there's the weight. There's the there's Sewell right there. The hat. The hat to me was very important. I take the hat from the gunslinger in the first episode, and that becomes kind of like Sewell's hat.
Yeah.
I want to keep it. Whenever this show ends, I want that hat. Personally.
Just sneak it offset.
Yeah. But yeah, all those things, and obviously we film in a very warm area of Southern California. In the summer months, so some days it was 105, 103. It got hot. Now, of course, between takes, they crank on the AC. But if you're outside, you're outside. And we were wearing, I had a couple days of filming in like buckskin. My shirt was buckskin, my pants were leather, and I was wearing an undershirt. And it was a fight scene, so I was wearing armor kind of underneath to protect. And we were, Merrifield and I were outside for hours doing this fight scene, just getting every angle of it, rolling around in the dirt, and it was pretty intense. I mean, we were all like, there was one scene where I finished up and I was like, I don't know why I can't catch my breath, and I was like, am I something wrong with me? And I realized that I had this constrictive padding underneath to protect me from falling. I didn't think about it. I was like, I don't know why I can't catch my breath. There's something wrong. And I was like, basically wearing a girdle. And yeah, and of course, that's the kind of, they wore a lot of clothes because it protects you. You need to wear clothes in the sun. And sometimes, honestly, someone from the crew would be wearing a short sleeve or something like that. And I'd look at them and I'm like, I'm way more comfortable in all of these clothes than that person is in the short sleeve. They're sweating. And I'm just, I'm hot, but I'm protected, So, and yeah, the costumes that Marquis and Medora had were phenomenal. And Roosevelt, some of his costumes are great too, The rest of us dirty kind of cowboyish,
Yeah.
really cool stuff. And yeah, the costume was wonderful, and makeup as well. They really, like I said, it really brings the character together when you put on those boots, when you put on that hat, when you strap on a gun. It adds something that
Oh yeah.
that takes you there. It's
Hmm.
great.
Excellent, excellent. I remember talking to Tori about the corsets. Actually, you mentioned corsets because we were talking about the costumes with her, and I said, "Did you have to wear those?" She was like, "No, thank God, they didn't have to.
Yeah,
They didn't make the women wear corsets because she said she already had someone come with a hairdryer. It was like, because of the heat and stuff, like you say, everyone's like she
yeah.
was having to stand there with a hairdryer to dry them off.
Oh yeah.
It was,
There was a lot of sweat, and a lot of dirt, which
yeah,
luckily for for the men, it just adds to it because we're supposed to be dirty. Those guys, and they weren't
yeah.
showering. They were. I mean, can't imagine what it would be like to sit in a room with those guys, for 5 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah, it'd be pretty mank.
exactly, exactly,
But it makes it more authentic as well, which is
exactly.
great.
The sweat dripping, the dirt on the face, feels real.
Exactly. Perfect. So now you've actually portrayed Sewell there's 10 episodes of season 1. Fingers crossed and touch wood that there'll be a season 2 as well, and obviously further seasons after that. We're still waiting to hear. Is there anything you're going to take away for yourself that you've learned from the journey of Sewell in this first season that you can maybe that you've learned how for developing yourself maybe, or anything like that kind of thing?
Well, yeah, definitely. I come at it from a different way of like guidance rather than saying do this.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's definitely Sewell's thing. He's trying to guide Roosevelt in a way without telling him exactly what to do. He wants him to learn his own way. He wants to learn through his own failures and through his own mistakes. And that, I mean, there's really nothing more valuable to a parent than doing that for your child. Rather than
Very
taking
true.
all the mistakes out of their way and making everything really simple, you have to say, all right, give it a shot, and then let me know how it feels afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is that's a very good ethos to have in life. Like I say, I think there's too much of the other in today's society, which is where we've probably got a lot of the problems coming from. Is that there's people have got grown up with no consequence or no
There are no consequences, my man.
accountability.
Yeah.
People can. I'm not going to get into it, but people can get away with everything nowadays, and
I
just
know.
yeah.
I know.
If they don't like it, they'll just say I'm offended and try and cancel whatever they like, just because whereas Gen Xers, I'm pretty sure you must be Gen X as well. I think that kind
Yeah.
of just about maybe we kind of just grew up with how it was. It's quite funny. I keep seeing these little videos on TikTok saying don't mess with Gen Xers because their parents just left them feral until they came in the lights.
And it is true. It is
Yeah, it
true.
is. But that was the best way to be, like you say. That's how we were brought up, and that's an ethos that we should carry on in life. Is
Yeah.
let people guide people by their own, let them make their own mistakes, but always be there, which is what Sewell does with Roosevelt. He's just there, just so he doesn't go too far with a mistake.
Yeah.
You'll be able to just pull him back in a little bit.
If you want my advice, I'll give it to you. But I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Exactly. Excellent. And as I kind of have to sadly draw this to a close, I'm looking at the time. I've done this every single one of you because it's been so great. Every one of you talk to. I just carry it on and on and on, and I could talk all day. And there's so much we could talk about, but obviously, you've got a busy day, so we've got to carry on. And so, what would you say to people who are watching this show in a sign-off thing? Any words of advice that you might have for people?
Well, I would just say, this show what's great about this show is it kind of has an old style TV Western feel. It's wholesome, and it has some of the similar shots. It has all of your classic things, your good guys, your bad guys, your gunslingers. It has all of that, all wrapped around a historically accurate retelling of one of America's greatest presidents.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a lot of things to be interested in, and it's fun. And you got like I said, like there's the highs and lows. There's some moments of real solid clarity, and there's some moments of wild west. Which is great. All the actors are wonderful. The characters are fun and colorful. The director was great. The cinematographer, everyone that worked on the crew did a great job. And they worked really, really hard to get this thing going. The writers, all that. But I would just say enjoy it. Sit down, watch it. You can watch it with your kids. You can watch it with your grandparents, and it's going to be really fun.
Excellent, fantastic, brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Elijah. I'll stop talking. Stop recording, even not stop talking.